Welcome back. I'm back in the circle for more ear training. This is essential ear training, Feeling the Minor Scale, which is a follow-up to a video I did a couple of months ago called Feeling the Major Scale. And before that, there was a video called The Secret of Ear Training. And if you haven't seen those, you might want to check them out before you watch this, but also whatever, maybe this is cool too. The secret of ear training is in the feeling. That's the point. That's the whole perspective here. We're taking a sort of feeling-based approach to learning to recognize the sounds in music, because the sounds in music are attended by particular feeling states. And it's these feeling states that we learn to recognize or become familiar with, and then attach a conceptual symbol to, like a number, like we're going to do today. I'm using a circle visualizer here, which is a prototype of something that we'll be releasing in the future. And if you're interested in being notified about that, there's a link in a pinned comment and in the description of this video. It'll be much more fully featured than what you see here. This is just a simple version. But this visualizer is essentially tuned to a particular key and then is showing you which degree of the scale you're playing as you're playing around it. So I'm going to be playing a drone, like was just happening, to establish a key center, a tonic. And then I'm going to be playing notes of the scale, notes of the minor scale, the Aeolian mode, as we'd say, over top of this drone. And you'll always see what degree, meaning step or note or number, I'm playing in relation to the drone, to the tonic. It doesn't matter what the pitches are in terms of actual note names, because the feelings of each number, of each degree, are universal, irrespective of key. That's the cool thing about this. So you're not learning what C feels like or A flat, you're learning what 2 feels like, or 7, or flat 5, or whatever it happens to be. All of these degrees, just like with chords, just like with anything in music, come with an attendant feeling state that can't really be put into words in any true way. We can say things like, oh, the tonic feels stable, or it feels settled. In the end, the tonic feels like it feels, and that's all. But that's all you need, because you have direct access to the feeling of each degree. Of every musical structure feels some way to you. And that's all you need to know. You don't need an intermediary. The feeling of the structure, of the sound, of the chord, of the note, of the whatever. And then there's a label for it. And that's all. We do want a label for it, because the label lets you use it in many different ways, put it in different keys, play on different instruments, understand it in a sort of generalized approach. It can be helpful to have some of these theoretical labels in place as a sort of like mental touchstone, a mental anchor point for which to put the feeling around, so that when you want to recall it or you want to translate the feeling onto an instrument, you have something that you can do that with that's kind of an interface between the feeling state and the mechanics of your instrument or your DAW, your MIDI, whatever it is that you're using. What we're going to do now is start listening to the degrees of the minor scale over top of a drone in order to start gaining familiarity with the feeling state of each of those degrees. Now, some of those degrees, some of those numbers are the same as in the major scale. In fact, only 3 are different, because we're talking about a Aeolian mode here, or a natural minor scale here. So compared to the major scale, we have a flat 3, a flat 6, and a flat 7, which appear here, here, and here on the scale, on the circle. Whereas in the previous video, we were really just working with the sort of right half of the scale, because that's where the major notes live. I should mention that these notes are arranged in fifths, like a circle of fifths, because notes that are a fifth away from each other are most harmonically similar to one another. And so in a sense of ear training, can sometimes be difficult to tell apart, or you might make mistakes with them. And notes that are diametrically opposed on this circle are the most harmonically different from one another. So for instance, 1 and sharp 4 versus 1 and 5. Notice that 5 and sharp 4, in any key of course, are only a half step apart. And yet look at how far or how close they are to the tonic on the circle. So melodic closeness and harmonic closeness are different. Notes that are melodically close are often harmonically distant, like 1 and flat 2, for instance, are a half step apart. It's the very next note, but it's very far around the circle, and the feeling of each of them is very distinct. For now, let's get into the drone and start listening to some of these degrees. All right, so we'll start with the tonic, of course. The drone is the tonic here, and we'll play it. And just like before when we were listening to this, we're not concerned about the specific pitch. We're not concerned about higher or lower than each other, a kind of melodic contour or curve. We're concerned with the feeling state of the moment. While a particular number, a particular note, a particular degree is being sounded, it feels some way. Compare this to this. So you're gaining familiarity by just being with the feeling. That's all. You just hear the note and attend to the feeling that comes with it in an open way, like you're becoming friends with it. You're just getting to know it. You do know it. You've heard it your whole life. These feelings that make up music are why we love it so much, but you've probably never isolated a lot of these feelings to think, right, that's a particular one, and given it a name so that you can remember it. That's what we're going to do here. So starting with the tonic, again, it's the generating tone, its stability, it is, when we descend the scale, that's the feeling. Closest to the tonic is the fifth, closest in terms of feeling state, harmonically similar. Compare the tonic to the fifth. Now, compare the tonic to the flat six, getting ahead of myself, but just for the moment. Now tonic to five. What I want you to take notice of is how similar 5 sounds to 1 compared to how flat 6 sounds to 1. 1, 5. Very smooth sounding in a way. They're very close. You could mistake them for one another, potentially. 1, flat 6. Pretty strong sound, I think. It's pretty intense, flat 6 feeling compared to the 5 feeling. That's what I mean by harmonically similar, close. Now we'll add the 2. Do take note that 2 is a fifth higher than 5. If you keep going up in fifths, go up from 1 to 5, then you go up another fifth from 5, and you get 2. I'm just playing it in the lower octave here. Of course, on this circle, octaves don't matter because the feeling state of a degree in different octaves is essentially identical. Of course, it's different to some extent. This note is not this note, is not this note. Even though they're all the 1 in comparison to this tonic, they are literally different pitches and will have some slightly different feeling tone to them. But in essence, they're the same. So we octave reduce in the circle. Doesn't matter which octave it's in. Okay, so now we've got 1, 5, and 2. Let's just play a little melody. And again. Now don't be taken in exclusively by the up and down contour pitch, the intervals between the notes. Not that that's not important, and obviously is a huge part of what's happening here, but each independent degree, as far as an ear training perspective is concerned, feels a particular way. And so consider it like almost as though you're seeing a slideshow, let's say, for the moment, where there's the slide of the 1, of the 5, and of the 2, and each slide in the show looks a particular way. It's a particular color, let's say, and in this case, it is a particular color. And in a sound sense, it's a particular feeling state that comes with it. So there's this feeling, this. One more time, slow. We're often really taken by the horizontal melodic contour, the way that it moves up and down, and the relationship between each successive note and so on. But in addition to that, we're also very much feeling the quality of each note on its own in a sort of vertical sense, let's say. In real listening situations, there's more than that going on. There's the harmony of the moment happening, and the previous feeling states that have just happened are also involved in whatever is currently being felt. You can't really push everything away and simply just isolate. But when we practice like this, we do. We try to do that to whatever extent we can so that we can really get to the bottom of what does each of these notes within a key center actually feel like, so that when we hear it in the wild, something goes, oh, that feels like 5. Oh, that's that 2 sound. That's that 1 sound, right? That's the idea here. So we're going to continue on now, but I just wanted to reiterate this point that thinking vertically, thinking in the moment, thinking the actual, even though the notes are passing by sometimes quickly, each note is its own moment of feeling, and that's what we're cluing into. When it comes to actually working out melodies by ear in real time and with real music, other things are involved. It's not just the feeling of scale degrees that you rely on, but if this is not something that you've worked on before, then it's perhaps a potential blind spot that can really help you get a grip with where you are when you're listening to music or trying to improvise or whatever. So let's continue on. Now let's bring in the 3 next. Now this is a flat 3 because we're in a minor key. So far the notes that we've heard are the same as in major, 1, 5, and 2. But now we get now compare these 1, 5, and 2 with this flat 3. Such a strong feeling for me compared to the other ones. The other ones are very sort of, if I had to describe, they're sort of like clean, pure, almost sterile, or I don't know what. It's hard to say. It doesn't matter what the words are. It matters that I know what it feels like. Whereas this, the third, just like the major third was when we did major scales, the minor third has something else. Now, there is another type of visualization that can be very helpful to understand this, like a harmonic lattice or a tone nets, depending on how you say it. And that can show relationships in 2 dimensions, horizontally and vertically, whereas this is just showing them in 1 dimension around the circle. So we do lose a bit of resolution in terms of like a little map of how this might feel or sound, but still, we can take note that flat 3 is not right next to 1, it's not right next to 5, it's not right next to 2, and it has its own distinct quality. You know, it's like if you were given just those 4 in like a little quiz or whatever, right? I can imagine that the first 3 can easily be confused for one another if you're not that familiar. 2 is the most unique comparison for me anyway. But then flat 3 it's just like, oh wow, yeah, of course. If you knew those were your only options, 1, 2, and 5, and then flat 3, and you hear that one, well, you immediately know it's not one of the first 3. It's, see what I mean? These feelings are not hidden. These feeling states I'm talking about are not some like weird, esoteric, kind of subtle thing that only some people have to like meditate to get into or whatever. It's just this. Bang. You don't think about it. You don't try to work out if you're hearing it right or feeling it right. It's just that feeling that you have right when you hear that. It's just that because it's not something that you can grasp, point to, it's a bit tenuous, obviously. So it's not as simple as having like a note on a keyboard that you can look at and say, there's that note. The feeling comes and it's very clear and it's very obvious. It's just what you're experiencing in the moment, but the ability to notice what that is, to clue into what that is, and to recognize what that is depends on having done this training and associated some kind of symbol with the feeling. Now, let's add in, 4. Compare with 5. See? The differences may feel subtle at first, but they are all unique. And just through familiarity, you will learn them, just like you learn anything in life through repetition, familiarity. You just learn the look of someone's face, you learn to name colors, you learn to identify bird sounds, you learn to identify feelings in your body, you learn to identify emotions through repetition, and then attaching some kind of label to it for some sort of mental reference. It will all come. You don't need to be concerned about whether you get it fast or slow or whatever. You just continue to experience the feeling and gain familiarity with it, being conscious of what it is when you're hearing it. 4. Five's like this. 4. We're going through all the degrees here. When you practice on your own, it's good to just work on, a couple at a time, or, there's lots of ways to go about it. So of course, it's just for this video, we're going through the whole scale. Okay, next up, let's add flat 6. Once again, the other ones. Notice that flat 3 and flat 6 are 1/5 apart. And they have a similar type of quality. They don't have this type of like 5 and 1 quality. They've got this thing. Sort of, I don't know, edgy a bit, sort of dissonant, sort of harsher, not bad harsh, but it's not this. It's just compare it. They're so close, half step apart. 5. How dramatic the feeling is between them, the difference in feeling, with such small melodic motion. Now I'll bring in the last. This is flat 7. So flat 7 is not as edgy or sharp or harsh or dissonant or whatever it is as the other two, right? Flat 3, flat 6, flat 7. And when you look on the circle, you can see 1, 4, compare 4 to flat 7, going around the circle. Getting a little bit more dissonant. Flat 3. Flat 6. And even though it's not in the Aeolian scale, the minor scale, we're playing flat 2. So that's all the degrees of the minor scale. Plus I played flat 2 there, of course, but ignoring that, most of them are the same as the major scale with only 3 differences: flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7. You remember it in terms of its number, and through association, the number and the feeling sort of become fused such that when you think the number, the feeling comes to mind, and when you feel the feeling in music, the number comes to mind. This is the plan, basically. We're going to change keys now. Just because it's good to do. So now here's a different key, and we're going to listen to the same degrees. I'm just going to improvise a little bit around, okay? So just be open, look at the numbers, feel into it. Don't pay too much attention to the overall contour of the melody, just in the moment, each feeling one after another. So you see, the feelings are the same. Feeling states are the same in this key as they are in the other key, unless perhaps you have perfect pitch and it's different for you. I don't know. It's not the case for me. But for most of us, the feelings in these two keys are the same. And if not exactly the same, they're very, very close. close enough that you can easily learn it in one key and recognize it in another key. But what I want to do briefly is compare some of the major variants with the minor variants. So let's put the drone back on and let's take a listen to flat 3. Pretty interesting. So how about flat 6 and 6? You know, for me, when I move from that 6 to the flat 6, it's just like something happens. Seriousness comes, or I don't know what. What do you say? You know, it's not like it's subtle. Ones, maybe. For me anyway, somehow it's like that. Okay, and 7s. What's essential as far as this ear training stuff goes is just being with the feeling and giving it a number. The circle here and visualizations in general can be very helpful, especially if you're a visual type learner and, you know, maybe there's some connections that go on there, as well as it's helpful to show in real time what's happening, kind of like subtitles. It's the way I think of it anyway, music with subtitles, where people who are, say, trying to learn English might watch movies and TV shows with subtitles on, and something happens when you do that a lot, right? You're hearing the language spoken, but seeing the translation into something you understand over and 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 over. That's what's hopefully happening here too. We're hearing these sounds, feeling these states, and we're seeing the number that makes sense to label it within a kind of comprehensive system so that we can have a framework to understand music in, conceptually. We understand music from the feeling state primarily, and then we need the conceptual layer so that we can translate it to an instrument and manipulate it in all sorts of different ways and write for various people. And I don't know, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we can, how we can make use of it. Now remember, you can sign up for updates on the release of Sonofield, which is the visualizer you've seen here on the video. And the released version will have many more features than currently are being shown in a different visual mode too. Otherwise, if you liked the video, please let me know in a comment what was helpful in it and what other kinds of videos like this you'd like to see. It really helps me understand what's working for people and what they find confusing, because I'm not here saying this stuff for my own benefit, obviously. I'm saying it because I think other people might find it helpful. But if you don't find certain things helpful, or you think that perhaps another approach on a certain matter would be helpful, or you want to see more depth on a certain topic or whatever, you need to let me know. That's the only way that I can know. So please do. Hope the video was enjoyable for you and that you have fun practicing all this stuff, because I don't know, I really like it and it's really helpful and it's super cool. Talk to you soon. Bye.